Recording in progress.
Yeah.
Good evening and welcome to the Thursday, May 26, 2022 Monomoy Regional School Committee. I am the Superintendent Scott Carpenter. This is a unique meeting each year because our regional agreement says that annually we will elect officers at the first regularly scheduled meeting held after the last elections in the member towns. So that's what we will be doing here momentarily. But before we get into that, I think it's only appropriate that we take a brief moment of silence for the families in Uvalde, Texas. Thank you. So I would like to call this meeting to order. Do we need to do a roll call on that? So we could go to the proverbial Zoom room first. Ms. Stout?
Aye, present.
Ms. Gaines?
Tina Gaines, present.
Ms. Tully?
Present.
And at the table, Ms. Scott?
Nancy Scott, present.
Ms. Rogers?
Jessica Rogers, present.
Mr. Russell?
Terry Russell, present.
Ms. Seabart-Long?
Jackie Long, present.
And Ms. Henderson?
Meredith Henderson, present.
All right, I would like to first open up this for nominations for chair. The way the district regional agreement works is that we alternate chair between Chatham and Harwich each year. So Ms. Henderson stepped in to fill in as chair and is a Harwich member. So we would be looking for a nomination for a Chatham member to be chair. Ms. Henderson.
I would like to nominate Jackie Zebrat-Long for chair.
Second.
Are there other nominations? Seeing none and seeing no hands raised in the Zoom room, I will have a vote on this. All in favor, Ms. Roll call vote. Ms. Stout?
Aye.
Ms. Gaines?
Aye.
Ms. Tully?
Aye.
Ms. Scott?
Aye.
Ms. Rogers?
Aye.
Mr. Russell?
Aye.
Ms. Seabart-Long?
Aye.
Ms. Henderson?
Aye.
My work here is done.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. I'm looking forward to another fantastic school year. So at this time, I'll be looking for a motion for vice chair. The chair will be a Harwich member. So at this time, I would open for a vice chair nomination.
Madam Chair,
Ms. Scott?
I'd like to nominate Meredith Henderson, please.
And is there a second?
I'd second that.
And a second for Mr. Scott. All right. Are there any other nominations at this time? Seeing no hands in the Zoom room, I don't believe. No hands here. All right. We will do a roll call vote. Ms. Stout?
Aye.
Ms. Tolley?
Aye.
Ms. Games?
Aye.
Ms. Scott?
Aye.
Ms. Rogers?
Aye.
Mr. Terry? Russell?
Mr. Terry. Mr.
I'm
Terry.
back.
Aye.
I'm an aye. Ms. Henderson?
I'm an aye.
It's going to be rough. Okay. Thank you. So the motion carries. Welcome, Mrs. Henderson.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to our Monomoy Regional High School student representative. The very last time.
Good evening, Monomoy School Committee, and thank you for having me. As the school year comes to a close, Monomoy High School has been filled with fun events, fundraisers, and academic endeavors. The annual Manhunt game was hosted at the school again this month. Students were able to come for a night of fun and games. The sailing team held a bake sale fundraiser at the event. Recently, visual and performing arts students took a field trip to Boston to experience exhibits as well as a live interactive performance at Mass Art. 8th grade teacher, Mrs. Barnes, was this year's recipient of the Don Salucci Award for Excellence in Promoting Civics Education. The award was presented by the Massachusetts Council for Social Studies. At the Harwich Town meeting on May 2nd, members of Monomoy Key Club held a bake sale to raise money for the Ukraine. The group was able to raise $450. On May 13th, the Multicultural Fair took place during the last block throughout the main hallway. Mrs. Doyle ran the event, and students were able to run booths to educate their peers on their culture. The all-boys fashion show, Mr. Monomoy, came back this year. Students of all grades were able to enter and compete in several categories to win prizes and the title of Mr. Monomoy. On May 16th, Monomoy High School held the internship thank you breakfast. Mrs. Oliver, who ran the internship program this year, put on a breakfast for senior interns and their mentors in order to say thank you. The Spring Performing Arts Concert was held on May 17th in the auditorium. Band and chorus members performed songs for the community to enjoy. The annual Spring Breakfast of Excellence took place on May 19th. Students were awarded with certificates for the academic achievements throughout the school year. Monomoy students volunteered at the local Walk and Wag event in Harwich. The event was put on by the Harwich Conservation Trust in order to raise money for the Sampsons Fund, which aids people in paying for pet medical bills. Monomoy students volunteered to help set up the event. Seniors Hannah Slater, Evie Sheeran, Emma Blankenship, and myself presented their Senior Global Studies Capstone projects last night. This past weekend, the senior class took their trip to New York City. Around 60 students traveled to New York City, where they went on a dinner cruise, visited museums, and saw a Broadway show. Monomoy High School National Honor Society participated in the Suicide Awareness Walk on May 20th. The walk took place in Hyannis, and students helped raise money for suicide awareness. Monomoy students Colin D. Montigny, Megan Gabri, Arlo Danielson, Patrick Jordan, Ethan Sofert, and Kurt Seymour were the winners of the Peace Poetry Contest. Senior Beach Day took place this past Monday. The entire senior class enjoyed a fun day at Bank Street Beach with food provided from the local fire department. The Monomoy All Sports Booster Club held their annual mattress fundraiser on the 21st. Students on the sports team volunteered to help out at the event, and the proceeds from the mattresses went to the Booster Club. Seniors Art Night is being held tonight. Artwork is displayed in the hallways, and musical and videographical performances take place in the auditorium afterward to celebrate the seniors' dedication to the arts. The annual Fin Fest is taking place on the turf tomorrow, May 27th. All students will be able to enjoy a fun day outside with competitions, games, snacks, and prizes. The spring sports seasons are beginning to come to an end. The girls' golf team has been announced the Cape Islands League champions for the season. The girls' lacrosse team will play their senior night game tomorrow night on the turf. The softball team had their senior night game this past week on the 23rd. As the year comes to a close, there are many exciting events and traditions taking place at Monomoy High School. Thank you for having me this year. It has been a pleasure to meet with all of you. And thank you for the wonderful things you are doing to keep this school and district a home away from home.
Very good.
Thank you so much. Wonderful news, and congratulations.
Thank you.
We'll see you in a week at graduation.
Yes.
Very, very busy, all of you guys are, so congratulations, and thank you. Any comments? Yeah, Ms. Scott?
Just a quick question. What was your capstone about, Charlotte?
My capstone was about the bluefin tuna fishery in the United States and Italy and how different fishing regulations affect the same population of species.
Wow. Thank you, very
Thank
interesting.
you.
And any other questions from the Zoom room? Ms. Stack?
Yes, I'm impressed by so much of what you had to say, but I have one small thing, and that is I was very impressed by the people that worked on collecting the money for Ukraine, because I donated, and I got a handwritten thank you note for doing that, which is almost unheard of. And I just think that, to me it made a huge difference, and I think it's a wonderful thing that group did. Thank you so much.
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. And anyone else in the Zoom room or in attendance? All right, great. Oh, sorry, she's to my right, Ms. Henderson.
I just want to thank you for committing to this and coming, every month and sharing all the updates and news. It's really nice to hear kind of the ins and outs that's happening at the high school. So thank you so much, and good luck next year.
Thank you.
Excellent, all right, thank
Have
you.
a great night. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, moving on to public comment. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes, additional time at the discretion of the chair. Do I have anyone from the public wishing to speak tonight? Seeing me here. Anyone in the Zoom room? Sharon, your hand is still raised. Okay, all right. I don't see anyone in the Zoom room. All right, so we're moving on to approval of the minutes for the Monomoy Regional School Committee meeting minutes for May 12th, 2022. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, and roll call. Ms. Stout?
Aye.
Ms. Tolley?
Aye.
Ms. Gaines?
Aye.
Ms. Scott?
Aye.
Ms. Rogers?
Abstain.
Mr. Russell?
Aye.
And Ms. Henderson?
Aye.
I forgot myself, and I'm an aye. Okay, motion carries. And moving on to reports and discussions. First item on our agenda tonight is the proposal for the Monomoy Regional High School student trip to Tokyo in April of 2023. And presenting tonight will be Mr. Nickerson. Oh, nope. Ms. Sherman. Excellent. Come on over. Thank you. I didn't see you. I saw Mr. Nickerson.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Senior Art Night and the Tokyo proposal. All right, just going to wait for that to share. All right, so I'm Lena Sherman, and I'm a teacher and the Visual and Performing Arts Department Chair at the high school here. And I'm here to propose an international trip to Tokyo in the school year 2023 for April vacation. And I can go to the next slide. And so this is kind of the package that we have selected. We can go to the next slide. So the purpose of this trip is to provide students with the opportunity to travel abroad and experience a different culture, which will help them grow as both individuals and intellectuals and become inspired by the world around them. This trip's itinerary not only exposes students to the art, architecture, and traditions of historical Japanese culture, but also the contemporary aspects, including digital art, design, fashion, animation, media, and technology, all of which we touch on in the Visual and Performing Arts Department. One of our goals in the department is to bring real-world experiences to our students that are culturally diverse, and this is one way that we can achieve this. So we have a couple highlights, and I'm not going to read them all to you, but really it's an amazing combination of traditional to the hyper-modern. So there's a lot of visits. We start in Osaka and go to Kyoto. We can go to the next slide too. Takayama, and then Kanazawa. And then we spent some time in Tokyo on the last day. What's nice about this is the experiences in this particular package really match up with our curriculum and our standards. We get to experience, architecture. There's an animation museum. There's a lot of hands-on art making experiences along the way as well. So some notes I wanted to bring up, because I know this is something that we have to think about, is access and affordability. And some highlights from the EF tours. They have fundraising opportunities, including a Global Citizen Scholarship up to $1,000. And they have built-in GoFundMe crowdsourcing services as well. Some of our VPA fundraising ideas. In the past, we have done an ad booklet that we hand out at all of our events. And we also have a new website that we have launched where we can begin to accept community partnerships and ads and sell those as part of a fundraising campaign. So in the past, students would go to different businesses and sell different size ad spaces, and that money would individually 100% fund their personal expenses. So it's a great incentive and also connects with our community on the bigger level. We also have ideas from our department where we would have student-made art fundraiser or sales, school-wide dances. Being a former Spirit Week person, I'm pretty good at that at this point, and those bring in a really great amount of money. There's also a lot of online web-based fundraising sales that the school typically sees in Snap Raise campaigns. Another note for the access and affordability, I have looked at multiple different options for this, and this trip was the most highly rated and affordable option for this location compared to others. Other agencies gave me comparable prices, but they had to take a lot away in order to get those prices close. So that wasn't really the great option. TRIF offers the most dynamic curriculum-aligned itinerary compared to others, and what makes me feel confident is that they actually have a physical office in Tokyo, like boots on the ground. If anything happened, I like to know that there's somebody there, in addition to the tour guide who's there with you like 24/7. The other thing to consider is insurance and safety. So there's protection for all travelers, schools, and districts. They have general liability insurance, flexibility to change tours, peace of mind policy, including COVID peace of mind and COVID care promise, protection for individual travelers with travel protection plans, and background checks for all adult travelers. They also have the biggest worldwide presence with over 50 countries, including the one in Tokyo I mentioned, 24/7 emergency support, and an expert incident response team, and a tour director with you literally everywhere you go, including the hotel stays. At this time, I'd like to bring up some speakers, starting with Mr. Nickerson, Jeremiah, and then some of my students who are really excited about this opportunity, Alexis Schneeberger, James Machnick, and Alexis Arruda.
Thank you. Thank you.
Excuse me. My name is Jeremiah Nickerson. I teach sculpture and ceramics in the art department here. I just quickly wanted to say ceramics in the Japanese culture dates back over 12,000 years, and for the students to be able to see that firsthand is just a really exciting opportunity, as well as the architecture stuff that Ms. Sherman mentioned before, as far as the sculpture is involved. So I think it's just a really exciting chance and opportunity for the kids, and that's all.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Alexa. I'm going to be a high school senior next year and wanted to talk to you all about why I think that myself and my peers would benefit from the school Tokyo trip. I recently took a school trip to London with EF Tours this past April, the same organization that would be running the Tokyo trip as well. The London trip had originally been scheduled to be April of 2020, but with COVID suddenly hitting that year, it was rescheduled for this year instead. EF Tours was able to refund my family when the trip had originally been canceled and already had a procedure in place for handling COVID when I went on the trip this year. While in London, we were able to go to multiple art museums around the city, which, as a student involved in the arts, felt like an amazing opportunity. Attending these art museums helped inspire and motivate myself and others on the trip to get involved with the arts. Being surrounded by the creative energy that art museums facilitate felt like it inspired my own in many ways. On the Tokyo trip, the incorporation of art into the trip would feel just as beneficial and inspiring as the location is filled with a beautiful combination of historical and modern art. For me, I love art history, and in Tokyo, students like myself would be able to be inspired by the years of art that has existed throughout the city. In addition, although I love art history, I found that in London, the modern art museums actually turned out to be my favorite, as I loved being able to see the way that things transformed and the unique ways that artists express themselves. Traveling to other places outside of the United States is an opportunity to expose students to more perspectives than are available in the classroom setting. Doing this allows culture to be able to be incorporated into art in a way that cannot be accomplished back home. In Tokyo, the combination of history and modernism that is incorporated into the city throughout the culture helps to facilitate the kind of inspiration and understanding of the world that is so important to expose students to. Not only would students benefit from the typical ideas incorporated into travel, but with Tokyo in particular, students would benefit from the creative energy and culture that makes the beautiful city what it is.
Thank you so much.
Hello everybody, I'm James. I aspire to be an animator as an adult, and going to the powerhouse of animation would just be, I'm not trying to be cliche or cheesy, but it would be a dream come true. And also just being inundated, if you can handle Tokyo, then you can handle anything once you get out of high school. So just to be completely inundated in a new environment, it's just a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, I guess. And that's it, really. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Thanks, James. I'm a little scared now.
I'm Alexis Arruda. I'm a sophomore, and I take both visual and performing arts classes. And as someone who has no idea what she wants to do, Tokyo is such an interesting cornerstone of all sorts of art, architecture, music, gaming, and Japanese animation are definitely like cornerstones in modern society, and huge influences for all sorts of modern art here in the US. And like, out of all of the places that we could go, Tokyo is definitely a once-in-a-lifetime experience. It's such an interesting combination of both extremely advanced technology and like very interesting ancient and indigenous culture. So yeah, I would love to go to Tokyo.
Thank you. Do you have anything to close out with, or why don't you come up and see, we'll see if there's any questions. Sure. All right, so questions. Zoom room, Ms. Holly.
Sounds amazing. I'm really excited to see that this trip is an opportunity for you all. And I do have a couple of questions. I'm wondering about, we've heard really good things about how EF Tours handled COVID on a London trip. And I was wondering if there's anything in their COVID care policies that indicate there will be any changes on the horizon within the next year or around the time that you all would be taking this trip. So I'm curious about that and where the conversation is going with any changes that are coming down the pipe related to how they announce. And I'm also wondering about target numbers, like target number of students that would go, is there minimum, is there maximum,
So
an ideal number of students that would go?
Great. We actually did say that there was no minimum or maximum, but I think what they were saying, for me anyways, was that the larger the group, the more opportunity as you are to travel all together and not have to pair up with another group, which can be kind of distracting if there's two different groups together. So they did recommend like 6 to 12 or more students per group, just so that we can book it all together, not have to share buses with other people and do the coordinating that way. In terms of their COVID policy, let's see here. They have their current policy listed as provided to groups departing before October 1st, 2022. So what they gave me might change, but as of right now, I feel confident in what they have in place now and that they would accommodate us in the future. But I can ask that question.
Yeah, I would very much prefer to know their timeline of when they will be reevaluating their policies and their target date for when a new policy will be released that would be able to be, that we'd be able to have right to give everyone peace of mind. So I would request that information.
Absolutely.
And then one other question I had, and I'm not sure if you're the appropriate person to answer this, or maybe someone else on the school committee, but I'm curious, just sort of for some historical context, how this trip compares price-wise to other international trips that have, that Monomoy students have gone on, and if there's any concern or what are thoughts around the cost of this trip and if it will be feasible?
So as far as this trip, it's costing for students under 20 years of age $4,740. I believe what I've heard is around $3,000 is kind of like the going rate for international trips, maybe not as far. I could absolutely go and double check exactly the cost of different trips. I know this one costs more because the flight is very long, and that's like the biggest part of the price increase. However, I think with all of our plans to do fundraising for our students, we can definitely make that more manageable within the year to come.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Holly. Ms. Gaines?
Yes, if you could tell me a little bit more about the Global Citizen Scholarship. That sounds really interesting, and I'd like to hear more about it and how students will be chosen.
So the EF Global Citizen Scholarship for $1,000 is an application process, so students can apply for that on the website, and it gives them instructions for what's required for that. I believe it might include some type of an essay, and then they have a selection process that they take care of themselves.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And who's selecting, if you don't mind? Is there a selection committee, or who is doing the selecting?
That's a good question. I'll have to ask my coordinator to see exactly who's looking at the applications. But I can get that information for you.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Stout?
Yes, just to follow up on Tina's question, I would like to know, proportionally, would they, do they guarantee one person per school getting this? Is it one person for everyone who applies to go there? All my interest really is in whatever number of kids go, that, it would be great for the number of the kids, because this is much more expensive than our general trip. It does sound wonderful, but just expensive. And also, kind of along with what Danielle had to say, is I'd like more of the specifics on if there needed to be a cancellation for an individual or the group. That would be helpful to know all the specifics of that. for getting their money back if something came up. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dr. Carpenter. Oh, sorry, Ms. Scott.
No, go ahead.
So, Amanda, I think the thought of being able to go to Tokyo is incredible, and I do think that we can, and EF Tours, I'll give them a lot of credit that I think they really did right by us and our families with the London trip, but that also took us doing a little pushing on our end, and I think if you push EF and just, I think, express what I would presume would be the consensus around the table with the school committee that to approve this trip and to support it, we would want to make sure that we're protecting our students and families, beyond October 2022, because it's you just don't want to be in a situation where the U.S. policy is you need to test before you get back into the country, and we run the risk of stranding anyone. And so I think both of the tours that went to London and the trip that went to Costa Rica, I think conveying that to the travel company, they want our business. So I think there should be something in place that that says that if there's a risk because of travel policy that either on Japan's end or on our end, that there needs to be some sort of test that could have somebody catch whatever, that we're not leaving somebody behind and having a family now pick up a multiple $1,000 plane ticket back.
I could also, if you'd like, there's a packet that I can send to everybody that it's pretty long, but it does go over the specifics about their general liability insurance, their peace of mind promise and everything. If you'd like me to send that, it does go over some of that.
Is that different than the plan we have?
No, that's the same one.
Packet.
Okay, yeah, I just
All right,
want to make sure you
perfect.
had it.
All right, great. Ms. Scott?
Thank you. I agree. I think going to Tokyo is a fantastic idea. Anytime, very supportive of getting the kids over the bridge. And going to Tokyo is way far over our bridge. But I think it's a great idea. I do have some of the concerns with the policies, just making sure, but again, I think pushing them, because EF is a great company, and a sales pitch for them, but they've pretty much always accommodated any questions to try to encourage, because they do want our business. It's kind of mutual there. I kind of help you out a little bit. The Global Citizen Scholarship, somebody was asking, and I happened to be reading it at that same moment. It's $100,000 worth of scholarships to students across the country every year. So it's not, I don't think there's anything specific, but there's 100 students across the country. So however that works, I don't know. Kind of a thought and suggestion, that's something that we usually talk about because this is a more expensive trip. Sharon, or I think Danielle asked, mostly in the 3,000s, I think, our international trips have been. And so any kid who wants to go, you really want to try to encourage them to figure out the best way to go. So getting any student who might be interested in maybe helping them, and this might already be an idea you came up with, so I apologize, but getting them a plan on how they can fundraise and how they can get there. And I think some of the ideas you gave were fantastic ideas, tie them into the arts as well. But I think it's possible for any kid who wants to go to get there if they want to put the effort in to help fundraise. But I think it's a great idea, and get some additional answers on the policies and pushing them to say, hey, it's going to last as long as it needs to. I think EF is reputable enough and has taken care of us well. So
yeah, I know that the tour director in particular, she's worked with Monomoy before, so she's very familiar with our process and our students, and I think she's worked with Rachel, she mentioned.
Yeah.
She's really great. And I do want to ask them about the October 1st, like what happens after that.
They have to have a cutoff at some point for policies, I get that, but like Danielle said, when are they going to come up with a new one, and what's it going to look like? Because they can't come up with a new one in September for one that expires in October, but, you never know what's going to come up when, so.
Great.
Thank you.
Yes?
Yeah, hi.
Damasco?
Yes, it is Tabasco. Just from a student perspective, so when a student fundraises with you guys, would it cover all of the expenses needed from the student, or would they have to go back to their family and, be like, figure out the rest of the cost? How would that work?
So, in other words, like, is the student completely responsible for, like, fundraising for their own ticket?
Yeah.
Yes. So, any money that you make for the fundraiser will 100% go to your cost and bringing it down. They also have, like, different types of plans for paying it off, so it's more manageable chunks along the way. So that's nice for, like, budgeting. And as far as, like, the ad sales go, I mean, we've had students in the past, even though it's just in, New York, like, this is going to be a bigger trip, the ads will actually cost more, because it's also, years later. So you can sell more and keep chipping away at, the cost over the year.
Could they chip away at the whole cost, or would they have to, go back and, take some of their own money and, just figuring out?
If there's additional cost that you didn't fundraise for, then that would have to be something that you kind of figure out whether or not you ask a family member, or, you can do a personal GoFundMe beyond what the EF program offers online, and kind of take it upon yourself for that.
Aye, Kevin, thank you.
Ms. Games?
Yeah, I'm curious with some of our, I don't know what that was. I have a question about, with some of our international trips, because obviously Japanese, is there any plan to prepare the students, at least in some basic Japanese, before they go?
That's a great question. I've not gotten there yet, but I do know that we have a really supportive staff here that can help me point everyone in the right direction. And I mean, even today, just general culture shock, like crossing the street in a foreign country, and like those norms that we don't, recognize, that maybe not everyone knows. Having some type of crash course in, how to behave in another country, how to navigate some basic signage, those kinds of things. We would definitely, I need it, if anything. So we'll definitely provide opportunities for kids to kind of get their feet wet before they just dive in.
Okay, that's good to hear. My daughter went to Tanzania 2 or 3 years ago, and I know that they had a little prep course, so that's good to hear. Thank you.
Of course.
Ms. Scott?
I was just going to follow up on Tina's. EF might give you something to say, before your trip, these are some of the things to kind of be aware of, because they're aware of that too. And then I think having the tour guide with you will help.
I do know that Kendall has, told me like the different stages of what happens next, and after, if this is approved, then there's like a parent meeting, and then she's there to support that, and then there's other steps that follow to like kind of go along and prepare students. So I have a lot of confidence in her, and she's like very communicative, so and very organized and efficient, which is great.
And Ms. Tolley?
Thanks. Actually, it builds off of what you were just saying. I was curious about what happened, like what's the process once and if the school committee does approve this trip. And I would really appreciate being able to see that in writing, knowing like that there's a parent meeting, or at this point it'll open up and registration will be open and then registration will close, or this will be an orientation, meeting will be scheduled once, it's confirmed who's going. I would love to see those steps. I think that helps me feel good, and I would feel confident seeing the full process of kind of planning and preparation. And maybe that's more detailed than others would like to know, but it would give me peace of mind to be really supportive of the trip.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Tolley. And then just probably to close out, I don't think anyone else has any other questions, but you're the first trip that has come to us post-COVID, because all of them have been approved. During the ones that were postponed, we did a lot of adjusting and updating and checking policies. We updated our policy for international travel and travel within the country and travel within Massachusetts. So I don't want you to feel overwhelmed. It's just that more questions have come up to us that now we are concerned about. So what you're asking is nothing different than what anyone else has ever asked us. It's just that we're trying to be a little bit more cautious, sending the kids out of the country. So presentation was excellent. I think that I would be okay if you went back to Kendra and just said, hey, you know, we went to our school committee because of COVID. We're looking for something a little bit more concrete in writing about how you're going to handle COVID from now through this trip. What are your plans? And simply, she's going to give you a great answer, I'm sure, because we're not the only people that should be asking these questions. And then as far as EF tours, I mean, I think we've had enough experience with them that when we bring this back for a vote to approve it, if maybe you could do an email correspondence with me, just with an outline of like, this is what she's come back with, and we can lay out what that information is, and then we can use that and vote probably at that point, unless there's more questions and we don't feel comfortable voting. But I don't want you to feel like overwhelmed with anything, because it's just that we're trying to dot our I's and cross our T's. I would advise you guys, and we've never done this before, and maybe it's been done, but take a look at the new policy and just make sure like you're fitting within what our guidelines are for the district. But otherwise, I think it sounds fantastic. So if you could just correspond with me via email or Dr. Carpenter, one of us, and we can bring that back and then move it forward at our next meeting if you have the information in time. That would be perfect.
I like having all the answers too. I know from, you know, my mom planning our trips to visit my cousins for the first time, because she's from Holland, like the amount of planning, and it's a lot. So I knew going into this, we're gonna, you know, we want to get all our, you know, dots and T's crossed and all that.
Perfect.
So, yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you all.
To all the
I appreciate
speakers.
it.
I don't know where they went. They left, but oh no, they're right there. Thank you guys.
Oh, my support system.
We'll make it happen.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Okay. Moving on. Yeah, that's good. Strategic plans. Yes, Ms. Stout. Ms. Stout?
Jackie, this is just, this is a compliment for you, because that last little bit you did with the presenter, I think is so important, because these presenters come and they don't necessarily listen in on what we do for other field trips, you know, or trips abroad. And since COVID and a lot of things have come up and we have changed our policy, rather than have the person feel like we're picking on them or something, the overview that you did was so helpful in summing up a whole lot of things. I really do appreciate that.
Well, you're welcome. Not a problem. Just got to make everybody comfortable here. Here we go. All right. Thank you, Sharon. All right. Moving on to Strategic Plan Steering Committee new member appointment. At our last meeting, prior 2 meetings ago, there was a request that perhaps we would add a new member to the Strategic Plan Steering Committee. At our last meeting on the 12th, we did add another member. I believe it was Miss Tina Games to the steering committee, and so it looks like it's on the agenda once more to see if there is, I believe it's for a Chatham member to even out a 2 and 2 on that Strategic Plan Steering Committee. So at this time, I would welcome any comments, questions, or if there's a recommendation for a Chatham member for the Strategic Plan Steering Committee, or we move forward with the way it is. Oh, Tina, thank you. See your hand. Ms. Gaines.
Yes, thank you. My question is, do we really need 4 people? If we're looking for, I'm happy to, if somebody else wants to step up, but do we really need 4 people? I don't know. I know we talked about that at the last meeting, but is that necessary?
Ms. Tolley.
I hear that, and I think part of, I think yes, because this is supposed to operate just as a subcommittee operates. In all our subcommittees, we have 4 people, 2 from each town. I think in our experience so far on the steering committee, with Sharon and I being the only voices, there were times when we felt a little stuck. And I think having more voices would be very helpful because this is a collaborative process. And the school committee has charged the steering committee with bringing something back to the full committee. My experience tells me that it would be helpful to have more voices in this process at this point.
Mr. Russell? Sharon's hand went down, went back up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree that I think the subcommittee of 3 could be strengthened by a 4th. Last month, we've had discussions that went well beyond an average amount of time to get this thing launched, and I think in many ways you were frustrated and we were going nowhere fast. So I think Tina will be an excellent choice to round out that group. Good luck. That's from Mr. Terry. Mr. Terry is saying that.
Mrs. Stout.
I'm the one with the mask on, the only one.
Mrs. Sharon.
Yes, I hadn't thought about this truthfully at the beginning, but it was really tough. And then, having been on the policy subcommittee forever, we do have that balanced out with 2 members from each town. So it does make sense to me to have 2 members from each town for this.
Thank you. Ms. Rogers?
I would happily volunteer to be the 4th on the strategic planning committee.
Okay. Perfect. And I believe we can just have a general consensus that Ms. Rogers has volunteered to be the 2nd Chatham and 4th member of the school committee on the strategic plan steering committee. And unless there's anyone that objects, we can go ahead and add her on there. And seeing no visual objections or verbal. Ms. Games?
I will respectfully disagree with everyone because I'm not convinced this is a subcommittee. I think it's more of an ad hoc committee because it's not going to be a standing subcommittee. Having said that, if the goal is to just balance out Harwich and Chatham, I'm happy to stay on, but I also am happy to step aside. So I'll just put that on the table.
Thank you, Ms. Games. I agree with you, Ms. Games. I think at this point, with the length of time it's taken, I think that 2 school committee members and our 2 admin that are on the team should be fine with getting it done. I don't know that it's power of numbers. I just think it just hasn't been as productive as we'd anticipated. So I don't know if maybe it's mixing up who's on the committee, who's on the subcommittee, as we call it. It just doesn't seem like we need to have 4 school committee members on a steering committee for the strategic plan, especially the length of time that we've already let pass. And that's where I stand too. So, we can take a vote. If somebody wants to put a motion out that we take a vote, or we can hold off on it and it can be an action item for next week, in 2 weeks, but Ms. Scott?
I hate to ask, and I'm sorry, and what exactly is the steering committee charged with at this point?
The steering committee is, or actually, Dr. Carpenter, would you like to, I can, but.
I believe what we're talking about is working with the consultant, TLA, to sort of refine how we'll work with them to go through the portion of the graduate process. So I think it's really making sure that that we're getting exactly what we want. You know, we're paying them $18,750, I believe, is the fee that we're making sure that we're getting the appropriate bang for the buck out of that, and accomplishing, getting the complete portrait of the graduate done. That, you know, we want to make sure that we involve all the community voices, and, you know, so strategizing, you know, what those community voices are, and, you know, I think that's going to be a part of this process.
Yeah, Ms. Scott. Quick follow-up. The last strategic plan we did, we had representation from the school committee, work with the admin, and those people who were a part of that conversation were then also a part of the larger steering committee, which involved community members. Am I remembering correctly? And if I am remembering correctly...
And parents and staff.
Okay, so in addition to our school committee representation and admin representation, it was outside members. And how many school committee members were represented on that steering committee? Is it 2 or 4?
I believe last time it was Ms. Stout, Mr. Roselio, and Ms. Sheehan. I believe we had at least 3.
Okay. I wasn't sure, 2 or 3. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I think it was Danielle first, Ms. Tolley?
Yep. So I just want to point out too that what Dr. Carpenter was referring to is where we are now. But the question was, what exactly is the steering committee charged with? And so back up, what the steering committee was charged with was working with the administration, because it aligns with one of our school committee goals for this year, to develop a process to develop our strategic planning process. So it's right now the point where we're at, and the work that's been done has led us to working with a specific facilitator for Portrait of a Graduate, but the process is bigger than that. And so I want to remind us that that's the bigger picture that we're talking about.
Great, thank you, Ms. Tolley. Ms. Games?
Yes, thank you. So, Nancy, thank you so much, because that was my, that's kind of was my memory of last time, that we only had 3 members, Sharon, Joe, and it was Joanne. So I think what I would like to propose, and I'm very happy that Jeff has volunteered to step up, I would like to propose that I step off, and Sharon and Danielle and Jessica are very capable. I trust all 3 of them. And I would like to respectfully remove myself from this committee.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Gaines. Round and round we go. Okay, so right now the strategic steering committee will now consist of the admin and Ms. Rogers and Ms. Tolley and Ms. Stout, and you guys will be working with the facilitator and bringing in our community stakeholders, et cetera, to a much larger group at this time. Would everyone be in agreement with that? Excellent. All right. Moving on. Special Education Parent Advisory Council, CPAC report. Here she comes.
Good evening, Ms. McGuire, Director of Student Services. I'm going to be really quick because I am so proud to introduce our Special Education Parent Advisory Council. But yes, and we can definitely clap, because just historically, I just want to, for those who weren't here, 6 years ago when I came, we had a lovely Ann Sullivan who was helping out, and we couldn't quite get it off the ground. And so 5 years later, we had wonderful Emily Bradley, and now, where is it? Thank you. Stephanie Goley, who have been absolutely amazing, and Beth Cook. So I really just want to introduce them and let them take it away with their presentation.
Thank you very much.
Okay, hi everybody, I'm Emily Bradley. I'm the Monomoy CPAC chair. So I won't read through this slide for you, that's just kind of the legal description of what the CPAC is, but just to sort of speak on it, it stands for Special Education Parent Advisory Council. And really, the purpose is to have a parent caregiver group. Anybody can be part of it, but mainly parents and caregivers that sort of collaborate, talk about what's working and what's not in Monomoy for special education, and communicate that with the school committee as well as district administration, mostly Melissa McGuire. And then there's some other stuff that we do as well, provide workshops and some things like that that I'll get into in our presentation here. We came up with this mission statement earlier this year. I'll just read it. The mission of the MRSD CPAC is to enhance the educational experience for students receiving special education services and their families. We support families along their journey by educating caregivers, connecting caregivers to each other, and using their input to strengthen special education programs and services by advising and communicating with the Monomoy School Committee and administration. Okay, so what this last year has looked like for us, these are some of the things that we've done. We provide at least one workshop a year through the Federation for Children with Special Needs. We did Understanding the IEP. We also collaborated with some other districts to provide more workshops. So both DY and Falmouth did eligibility and evaluation that was shared with us, and Bourne is supposed to be doing transition planning before the year is over. So when that happens, we'll put communication out about that as well. We held 3 public meetings for everybody to join. We had some old bylaws lying around that we revised and passed in our meeting. Developed the new mission statement that I just read to you. We put a survey, a survey out there for where people could opt in to be on our sort of personal list so that we could communicate with them directly about whether it's meetings or surveys or just another way of communicating with interested families. Recently, with Stephanie's help, we created a brochure that is kind of like this presentation, really. It'll talk about what the CPAC is and what we do and what our goals are, and provide families with our contact information. The plan being to pass that out at IEP meetings, mainly new special education families, but whereas it's just kind of getting started, I think at first we'll do it for everybody, established special education families as well. Hopefully build some membership that way. And then recently we put a survey out there. Part of this presentation is going to be speaking about those results. We asked special education families what their experience has been, what's good, what could use some improvement, and kind of where they stand and what their thoughts are. So Stephanie's going to speak on that from here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Emily. Hello, everybody. So like Emily said, we surveyed parents. We were very happy that we got 87 responses. Initially, we had like 23, and so then we badgered people like 3 more times and said, please fill this out. So there are 87 responses, which is small compared to how many people there are, but we think that's pretty good. And then you can just see from here the breakdown of the schools. Monomoy Middle coming in strong with 30 responses. One of the first questions we asked was, how would you rate the special education services provided by Monomoy? You can see that 55% of people are identifying it as very high, so that's promising. And then 4 is also, equally high, so that looks very promising for the district. We also had parents rate the responsiveness to your child's needs by the following individuals. So there's they were rated a general education teacher, special ed teacher, therapist, school admin, and district admin, and they were rated from poor to excellent. You can see that most of these individuals were rated as mostly good to excellent. you'll notice that's like district admin don't have as many votes, and people were directed that if they don't really communicate with those individuals, just to leave it blank. So those are lower numbers. We asked some open-ended questions, and one of them was, what's working well for your child in special education? We didn't take the time to write down every single 87 responses here, but some of the themes that came up were happy with one-to-one attention, the team collaboration, understanding and meeting children's needs, and people honestly felt like the staff care about their child. So these were things that came up over and over again. We also asked what's not working well for your child in special education. Again, these were themes that came up multiple times. Communication in general, there were some specifics about that. And all of these things that aren't working well, Melissa will get more specific information that she's able to respond to in a way. We'll give her more than just communication as a guideline. Group work not going well, more help with social skills, more speech services, more strategies and supports for anxiety and mental health. I think we changed that, but that's okay. The IEP not being followed, that had a number of things that were said, but it was really about inconsistency or maybe miscommunication about IEP. And then appropriate assessment and interventions. And then what supports would be helpful for your child? Again, the communication came in. Some people responded about communication in between progress reporting and report cards. How parents can help at home, mental health, social skills again, and then transition planning between schools and then also to adulthood for kids who need that. And that's, did you want to talk about that?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, so that's all the survey results, and so Emily's going to share what our plans are.
Great, thank you so much.
Okay, so going forward, some of our thoughts are up here. We're going to continue to offer at least one workshop and collaborate with the other districts to hopefully provide as many as humanly possible. Also, we want to reach out to more families, more parents, build more capacity in the CPAC. It's pretty much just us at the moment, but yeah, no, there have been some attendees, which is really nice, but yeah, no, more would be awesome. And then we'll do the brochure, which hopefully that will help with that. We'll get those out at the IEP meetings. I think we'll be starting that next year, start fresh with that in September. We're tossing around a couple of ideas to connect families to each other. That's kind of tough to figure out exactly what we want to do, because depending on the age of the students, that's going to look different what families are looking for. But we're trying to think of some good ways to connect families to each other, because when you're a parent of special education children, a lot of times it kind of feels like your situation is unique. So I think it would be nice if we could connect some families together. And then the survey that we just spoke on, we'd like to do that once a year and just kind of follow that and see what we want to focus on and where everybody's thoughts stand with Monomoy special education. So, and then we have this is our contact info. We have a page on the Monomoy website. Part of our future plans is also to update that, but it's there. Our email, you can reach me at cpac@monomoy.edu, and we have a Facebook page as well that Beth is doing a good job keeping up with. So
excellent.
That's that.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for all the information. Love the update, and I will open it up to the board for questions. Ms. Henderson?
I just want to say thank you for all your work. I know that I was in a meeting with Melissa and Emily last year, and you were the most active voice last year, so it's really great to see that we've multiplied now, and maybe even more, you never know. So thank you for all the work. I think that the the access to information and having these families with unique situations be able to connect with similar families, I think is really important for that population. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Ms. Scott?
I just want to say, yes, what Meredith just said. I was just going to say thank you guys for stepping in and doing all of this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Games?
Yeah, I want to echo a huge thank you because, yeah, you have revived this group, and I thank you so very much. If I can, just put something on your radar that I didn't see in your presentation, just for consideration. But for some of our high school kids, because my son was on an IEP for as long as he was from preschool on, and I think it was about 8th grade, where if you have a student who is high functioning, there is opportunities for them to advocate for themselves. And I would like to just put on your radar, because I think it's hard sometimes for parents to let go and allow the child to advocate, and that's especially helpful when they go on to college, because they have to advocate for themselves. So I just want to put that on your radar, if it's not something you're thinking about already, about how you might support families of high schoolers where they are at a place where they can go into IEP meetings and advocate for themselves, and either the parents are there and quiet, or maybe even not there. So I just wanted to just put that out there. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Ms. Stout?
Yes, I really want to say thank you to you two, because I think it's difficult enough being a parent of an average or bright child. And when your child has special needs, you know, there's so many different stories and different special needs. To have any kind of group or support system like what you're trying to do is so important. It's almost like a foreign language having to go into this. So thank you for doing something that's so important.
Thank you, Ms. Stout. Ms. Tolley?
Again, echoing gratitude for the work and commitment that you are putting into this. And I wanted to offer, I guess, my encouragement to come back to us and let us know how the district can support family connectivity, because I think I hear you saying that that's really important, and I think it's our job to do better, and it's our job to support that. And so please, let us know how we can do that, what we could be doing, what we should be doing. And it makes me wonder about kind of what I saw in the presentation. What I heard was these themes of connectivity and communication and continuity, and wondering what currently is in place in our district as far as, I'll use the word orientation again, when we have students in our district who have an IEP and they're moving through beginning in preschool and moving into kindergarten, elementary school, middle school. What sort of ways is the district holding these families and saying, welcome, this is how it goes, this is how it works with us, this is your person to talk to about this, this is the channel to communicate about this, these are your resources. I'm very curious, because I don't know, I'm new in this role, but I expect that should exist, and if it doesn't, then let's figure out how to make that happen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tolley. Ms. Scott?
We do have a school committee liaison to the CPAC, so when that comes around, we will have somebody from our committee working with you guys, which will help the communication coming back to us. So.
Great, thank you for the reminder. Ms. Rogers?
Great presentation, and I'm so excited about the brochure. I think it's going to be really helpful for parents just coming into the school system to have an idea of who to go to, what kind of supports they can get from the CPAC. So just thank you for doing it, because you're doing a great job. Even I've only been to maybe 1.5 meetings, but during the last meeting, watching you two help a parent who had questions about their daughter's IEP. It was just so neat to see it working, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Great, thank you. Thank you both very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
Have a lovely long weekend.
All right, thank you, you too.
Okay, and moving on to Chatham Town Meeting Regional Agreement, next steps, Dr. Carpenter.
Sure. So I think, as everybody knows, the changes to the regional agreement passed in Chatham, as did our budget. So that's good news. I also want to just give a shout out to both Danielle and Jeff Dykins, who I think were brave enough and bold enough to step up to the mic and address some of the feedback that we were hearing. I think the feedback could be clumped into three themes that I think it's important for us to know, understand, and hear. The first theme is that clearly, even though we're approaching 10 years or 10 years into this district coming together, there are still people who have memories of what they believe or strongly feel the history pre-Monomoy was like, and there was a feeling that was being expressed that Harwich needed us, and I think there wasn't necessarily an appreciation. I tried to kind of comment on this, that Chatham needed Harwich too, and I think it has been a really productive relationship that has come out since over the last decade. The second were some folks that were talking about that any change to the regional agreement's premature, that we still need to address that Chatham Elementary doesn't have as much enrollment as people would like, and that we need to think about how to bolster the enrollment at Chatham Elementary. And while I don't disagree that we need to come up with ways to bolster the enrollment at Chatham Elementary, I also think that it's very complex, and I was very thankful that there were a number of articles at Chatham Town Meeting that also dealt with things that would help support young families, like the preschool voucher, and also different warrant articles that would address attainable and affordable housing that could help bolster enrollment in our schools. And then the last one that piece of feedback that came up that is definitely pertinent to our next agenda item is that there were some that felt maybe this is premature, wanting almost a quid pro quo, that we would approve changes to the regional agreement if there was some ceding of land back to the town along, for that parcel along stepping stones. The vote did take place, and the vast majority of the people at town meeting did vote to approve the changes to the regional agreement. But after the vote, the town moderator did have an impromptu, just sort of show of hands, how many people feel like they would like to see the school district sort of look at that land, that parcel of land on stepping stones, and have that go back to the town. And the vast majority of people held up their cards, sort of indicating that's something that they would like to see our committee getting to. So in terms of next steps, I'm thankful for all the school committee members making the trek into central office and signing your names on the hard copy of the regional agreement. We also took it to the Chatham Select Board and the Harwich Select Board. We have packaged it, and along with certified copies of the town meeting votes and your vote to engage in this change, package that, and that has gotten sent to Mark Terry, who will be working with DESE. But as you know, we have been working with DESE all along. So the next step is just to sort of deliver it along with the cover letter to the commissioner, and the commissioner should be then just signing off and providing something back to us.
Great, thank you, Dr. Carpenter. And any questions for Dr. Carpenter? Mr. Russell.
You can go to Terry with the mask on. It's so mysterious. It's not a question, but it's a comment. For those of us who have lived through this and talked through this for about a year and a half or 2 years, I too want to just add the thanks for those members of the committee that jumped on board and began to understand the process. Not so much the elementary population, but all that entailed. And lastly, the plan to match up, which is not a total 100% solution, that Scott came up with, probably with his leadership team, to match each elementary school off with their own finances. That seemed to slide into success. So I want to thank Scott for presenting that idea for the past 6 or 7 months, and what was a major issue in all of our minds seems to have, on step one, successfully moved into a good answer for all of us.
Thank you, Mr. Russell. And any other questions or comments? Seeing no cute little hands raised. Oh, Mr. Carpenter. Dr. Carpenter.
Just one quick reminder on our next steps. I don't know who wants to lead the charge on revising the regional agreement Part 2, because we did say that we would be cleaning up the obsolete language. So even as I was preparing for tonight and the vote for who's going to be chair, there's language in that clause that talks about, for example, the first year that the district comes to be. So there's a lot of obsolete stuff that we have said that we were going to address, all things financial, and come back and now go through all things obsolete.
Okay. Thank you for that wonderful update, Dr. Carpenter.
I don't think anybody wants to do that anymore.
I say that with the most enthusiasm I have. Mr. Russell, anything to add?
Yes, well, maybe a way in which to expand that, the knowledge of that issue. As our strategic subcommittee, the 3, plus our administrators, launch with the consultant, I would suggest we make, it seems obvious to us, but make that one of the strategic goals, that we identify what paragraphs and sentences, as simple as it sounds, we know what we all went through 5 years ago, and cause that to be one of the happenings in the next several months with maybe community members part of that.
Some PTSD across the
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Terry Russell. Ms. Tolley.
I was just going to ask if that could be repeated. I'm having a harder time hearing the last couple of minutes. It's sounding a bit like underwater. So Terry, could you repeat that comment? Because my sense of it was sort of summative.
I'm thinking back, Danielle, as what I said, because it sounded like water to me also. All I was suggesting is, as we relaunch the strategic subcommittee and begin to expand that group, this issue of the remnants of the agreement that has yet to be voted by the 2 towns could be identified by a subcommittee of that group, meaning some community group members, as well as whoever else is on board, during the process of identifying goals for the next 3 years for the strategic, and have this, be ready to go next spring. So that might capture what I was saying.
Ambitious.
I've got some people giggling here, Danielle, so that's the best I can do.
Thank you, Mr. Russell. Yes, there's some background giggling happening because it's just exciting. All right, any other comments, questions, concerns? So many. Okay, great. With that done, we are going to move on to item number 5, Town of Chatham Stepping Stones Parcel Discussion. Picking up where we left off from our last meeting, we do have an action item tonight to vote on the Stepping Stones parcel, and I will open it up at this time for discussion regarding the leasing of the parcel. I do recall, I think at the end of our last meeting, there were inquiries as to possible verbiage in an agreement once we leased the property, that it would be allotted for its intention, what it's intended for. I have not got, I don't know if the past chair got an update from the town as requested, or if Dr. Carpenter did, but I don't believe we have an answer to those questions as of yet. So I'll open that up for discussion. Dr. Carpenter.
So we've been going back, we've sent legal counsel essentially what you have in your packet so that they see. I think with regard to this, the lease, which is in your packet, you'll notice, the only property map that shows up when it comes to the lease actually happens to be the ball field in front of the high school. So it has been very gray as to where, what is the school's land and what is the town's land. So we had one thing that we did was I had a bit of clarity with the town of Harwich with regard to the fields behind the elementary school and the middle school, because for the longest time there was this sort of conversation about a line that was town versus school, and I had to point out to people that we ultimately did, but I had to point out to people that the yellow line that everyone keeps referring to was me taking a Google map picture and Photoshop and just sort of drawing a little line, where our fields were, and the town at the time had wanted to potentially take over and beautify and create sort of some parkland back there, and in order to do that, we worked with the select board to come up with a intermunicipal agreement because we wanted to kind of make sure that there still was going to be park space and everything for schools to use. We wanted to sort of at least put our stake in the ground that way. So there is a rather elaborate intermunicipal agreement that the school committee voted. So I provided that in here. But we were engaged in we're going to share this property afterwards. What we're really thinking about here for the town is not necessarily a sharing, because we wouldn't be saying, unless we were being so bold and say, well, we wanted to have this specific type of house or these people living in the houses or whatever. But I think this is maybe doesn't need to be as complicated as an intermunicipal agreement. I did go on a stroll of the property with Mr. McMillan and Miss Stout a couple days ago, where we actually got to see a lovely endangered sandhill crane on our ball fields, still out there. Go get your binoculars and go see the sandhill crane while you can. So I think Sharon can go and talk about just at least getting a view firsthand. It was also a chance for me to look at the woodland that the town was talking about, potentially also just wanting to understand is it usable, because there's some topography issues on the hillside that goes up towards the water tower, but there is we'll call it town-owned leased land that's ours. Whether or not there's an ability to have any sort of housing on that grade, I think would need engineers to determine.
Thank you, Dr. Carpenter. Ms. Stout?
Yes, I didn't realize I was going to talk about our little walk up there, but we did not go on to that part that isn't in discussion really now, but that to me is something, as far as I can tell at this point, would not support. But the parcel that is up for discussion right now in between stepping stones and the bike trail, very exclusive, that a particular portion, is that correct? Stepping stones and the bike trail, that particular portion did look like it could be usable for housing and not interfere. It is on the far side of the bike trail by housing. It would be my preference to, as I stated in that little walk, have a fence. I think that any people in housing there would prefer to have a fence between them and the school, but I also feel like, safety is a big thing now, that it would help not completely protect, but make good neighbors. And I just think it would be the best idea for the school also. But, yeah, that did seem to be appropriate. And I do like the discussion that we had at the last meeting where people mentioned that if we could make a motion with the specifics of using it for affordable and or workforce housing, rather than have it go askew to something else. I would be supportive of that.
Thank you, Ms. Stout. Mr. Russell.
The parcel of stepping stone, independent of the other conversation, I would be in favor of declaring it surplus and turning it over back to the town of Chatham for their purpose of having
I would actually like to sort of reinforce a point that Sharon made. I think one of the nice things about the way the school property that we functionally use, which, there was a baseball game about to kick off, and there was all sorts of youth sports happening on the fields at the middle school when Ms. Stout and I and Mr. McMillan were walking around. But the nice thing about that area is there is this little but steep slope between our fields and the bike trail, and there's this nice wooded buffer, and and it would be nice however this plays out, that there's some sort of buffer like that, just for the aesthetics, both for those who are on the housing side of it, but also from the school side.
Ms. Gaines? Sorry, Ms. Gaines?
Thank you. Regarding the comment, I guess, about a fence or buffer, I don't know, and maybe, I don't think that that's our thing just that we can say unless it's on our part of the property, I believe. I think it's a good idea. But I also believe zoning, or I don't know where this would fall, but I don't know that we can lock a fence or anything in. But I think it's a good idea, certainly. I just wanted to say, I just don't know if that's something we can guarantee, if that's what I'm hearing tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Gaines. Ms. Rogers?
I just wanted to say that I was in favor of allowing it to go to surplus for affordable and attainable housing. It's a great neighborhood, right near the schools for kids and families, so I just wanted to voice my support.
Thank you. And Ms. Tolley?
I'm in full support of declaring a surplus and designating it for affordable and attainable housing for the town of Chatham.
Thank you, Ms. Tolley. Ms. Scott?
I see that Ms. Goldsmith is here, but do we have any guidance that it is something that we can do, declaring it surplus only if it's used for affordable attainable housing, or is it under our advisement that we would like it to be? Or how do we?
That was our charge last week, but it's looking like we don't
have any opinion on that?
Nope, we don't have any opinion. So knowing that, just a point of clarification, when you declare this piece of land as surplus, you will lose control of whatever the town of Chatham feels that it's best used for, whether it's affordable housing, whether they just sit on it because and decide to do something else with it. There's going to be a feasibility study done on it still. There's no guarantee you're going to have a beautiful brush border. We may have to put up fences for the safety of the kids. That will all be determined, once the actual project is taking place, and, we may be rerouting buses for a short term. We're doing construction, there's all of that kind of logistical stuff. I can't imagine more than 4 houses at the very most going on that piece of land, but, we won't know until the feasibility study takes place. So at this point, if you're voting to surplus the land, you're voting to just surplus the land to the town of Chatham, and they can do what they want with it, if that helps clarify. Because I think we've gotten guidance that, there's no writing that we can put in to surplus, when we surplus, or whatever. Ms. Stout? Ms. Stout? You're muted, Sharon.
Oh, okay. I don't know what the harm would be for us to vote tonight with the express purpose of this, to vote in favor with the express purpose of this being affordable workforce housing. I think we can vote whatever we want to vote, because that's our purview. Then they'll have to decide what they do with that. And they may not accept it, but I don't know. I think we'd be giving them a clear signal. I don't think there's anything preventing us from doing that.
I don't believe we can put a contingency in the surplus property, is what Dr. Carpenter was saying. Because we went to, did we go to Mr. Terry? Oh, we don't have an opinion on it, so I would say that I wouldn't guarantee it at this point. Somebody over, Ms. Scott?
I was going to make a motion.
Okay. All right, and Ms. Tolley?
Yeah, because to me, that was a critical piece of information that we had requested before we would be asked to vote on this. And so the fact that we don't have that information means to me that we should not be voting on it until we have that information. And so my understanding from the conversation we had during our last meeting is that we know we want, that this is an urgent need for the town of Chatham, and there is no urgent, specifically deadline related to this particular vote. And so I'm wondering if, 2 things. One, we postpone this vote until we have that information, that we can designate, or, declare the land surplus with a specific designation, and have that weighed in from our council at hopefully our next meeting. Or whenever we get that information, then we decide which agenda we can have this vote on, or, at which meeting we can vote on this item. My other question, or I guess way of thinking about it, is there a way to declare it surplus and have a memorandum of understanding with the town of Chatham that this is the vehicle, or, that this is the way that we are declaring it surplus? So I'm wondering about those 2 avenues.
Thank you, Ms. Tolley. At the permission of the chair, I guess is who I am, Ms. Goldsmith has joined us, and she's here, so I'm wondering if you might have any information to share or feedback with the questions that have been brought to this evening.
So thank you, Madam Chair. So the Select Board presented the opportunity specific to affordable or attainable housing. In the process after the school committee would surplus it would require a town meeting vote. So for the designation of the property, and then in the future use of it. So the intention is for affordable and or attainable housing. If it's strictly affordable housing, big A, then that is presented to the Affordable Housing Trust, and they're the ones that would take the vote. And that was really similar to what we did with the diocese property on meeting, so it went directly to the Affordable Housing Trust. So, I apologize that the councils weren't ready to have a recommendation for you on if there's any restrictions that the committee can impose on such designation to surplus it, and we're hoping to get it as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Goldsmith. Mr. Russell.
To be straightforward, I think the town manager Chatham just outlined it. I'm in favor. Does everyone agree with what I just said? My mic was off. I'm in favor of turning the property over and identifying it as surplus. Clearly, we're not in a position to say our opinion is, but everyone knows what the school committee's opinion is. And everyone, in my judgment, I didn't walk the property, the community in Chatham knows that they're looking at as serious housing for 2 or 3 or 4 homes for those who fall into that category of affordable. I don't know if we as a member of a school committee can go into any further detail as to fencing, or just how expensive would this be. That's for somebody else. So I would, to move the issue forward, I would be in favor of having a vote, trusting the Chatham Select Board and their committees that they know what our judgment and opinion is and why we're turning the surplus over for some level of affordable housing, and move on. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Scott?
So I'm just rereading the memo that we were provided from, I keep wanting to call you Dr. Goldsmith, so I'm elevating you, from Ms. Goldsmith. And it's specifically saying, consider whether this portion of the Monomoy Regional Middle School property located adjacent to Stepping Stones Road should be pursued for affordable and attainable housing purposes. If the board wishes to pursue the possibility of removing this area from the lease agreement for future designation of this land for affordable and or attainable housing purposes, direct the town manager to request the item for the school committee agenda. So I feel confident that that is what the board, the select board is looking for, and so therefore I'd like to make a motion to declare the portion of the Monomoy Regional Middle School property located adjacent to the Stepping Stones Road as surplus.
Thank you, and I have a second.
I'll second.
Okay, and discussion, Ms. Stout? Is there a question or a discussion?
Yeah. Well, I will not be voting for it without that caveat, because to me, my job is to vote my conscience on this, not to trust other people to do what they should be doing. And so, with that caveat in there, as Nancy read, that evidently Joe wrote, to do this for affordable or attainable housing, whatever that wording was, I can't remember exactly, I would vote for it. I don't know if I'm just one person and one vote, so it may not matter, but that's my comment.
Thank you. Any other questions or discussion before we do a roll call? Seeing none, I will motion holds. There was a second by Ms. Roberts, so I will go to Ms. Stout for a vote.
No.
Ms. Games?
No.
Ms. Tolley?
Aye.
Ms. Scott?
Aye.
Ms. Rogers?
Aye.
Mr. Russell?
Yes.
Ms. Long? No.
And I'm aye.
We have to count. Nancy?
3.5.
Sharon, Tina. Motion carries. Okay.
Somebody check my phone. Okay, so 3.5 to 2.5.
Okay, great. Motion carries. Perfect. All right. moving on, Subcommittee Representative Liaison Report, Superintendent's Evaluation Committee.
So we did not have a meeting, but I think we put it on the agenda just as a reminder that Leah did, after our last meeting, Leah did send us all an email with an electric version of the form that we need to fill out for the evaluation, and those individual summaries and rating sheets need to be to Ms. Zebrat Long by June 1st, so that she can put it together as a summary, and we can have our first reading at our meeting on June 9th. Yeah.
Fantastic. All right, and moving on to Superintendent's Report, recognition of donations, grants, and other acknowledgements, and the COVID dashboard.
In terms of recognitions, I would like to recognize that we had the high school class of 22 had their trip to New York City that was presented to the school committee. On their trip, they had a cruise, a visit to the Top of the Rock, and Madame Trousseau's to a Broadway show, and even stopped at Six Flags on the way home. I would really like to thank class advisor Jackie Corrigan for working to put together the fun events, and to the chaperones, the other chaperones who gave up their weekend to be with the seniors, including James Otto, Lindsay Giannetti, Gibson St. Thomas, Tara Lee, and Rob Sliney. Lastly, I would like to just acknowledge that Angie Chalaka has been named the 2022 Mercy Otis Warren Cape Cod Woman of the Year. Angie was a retired health educator here with Harwich Public Schools and with Monomoy Regional School District. She was endorsed by the Municipal County of Commissioners for the great work that she has been doing. She is recognized as a Cape Cod woman who's made a significant and positive impact in our region. Ms. Chalaka has had a number of things that she did while with us, but she credits her teaching job gave her a window into the lives of students, some of whom were struggling with economic stability in their homes. She's been involved in a variety of charitable endeavors to ensure warm winter clothes and school supplies are provided to students. She's a volunteer with the American Red Cross, the Harwich Council on the Aging, and serves on the Board of Directors for Outer Cape Health Services. She's a longtime member of the MLK Action Team, a racial justice group of the Nauset Interfaith Association, and through this work, she has been instrumental in promoting racial justice. So congratulations, Angie. In terms of COVID, we're heading in the right direction. I feel like I was sent an email out to our staff with a link to the Beatles song, "It's Getting Better All the Time," because I feel like we need some good news. So 2 weeks ago, we were really hitting the wall with some of the highest new COVID incidences that we've seen during the pandemic in our schools. We had 50 staff and students combined that had caught it in that week. Last week, 39, and this past week, only 21. So we keep going in the right direction, and hopefully we continue that way heading into the summer. But 21's still really high, and I think we all know somebody who's currently struggling with it. We do have at-home test kits that have been that we have been distributing each week, so that families can test their student at home on Monday mornings and Thursday mornings before the child comes to school. Most of our staff also are getting those test kits and testing before school Mondays and Thursdays, and we'll continue that through the school year. We also have students and staff who who have summer school programs here each year. So we will continue and make that same sort of approach available this summer to families that opt in, where we can go and provide them tests, and we'll have them currently on hand. In the fall, DESE has been telling all to prepare that there's a good chance that there will be yet another bump out there. So we're told to anticipate, but we're also told that that it looks as if the funding for testing will have completely evaporated, and we're going to have to kind of get into sort of a process of getting those test kits for yourself and testing at home as necessary. I heard this on the news this week that there are more test kits that you can get free from the federal government too. So they're out there, but that is still a reality for us. And just my last little piece of the superintendent's report is just a reflection on Texas and my own little editorial. I feel like I'm going through these different emotional stages over the last couple days. 2 nights ago, I think my daughter found me kind of tearing up as I was typing out to our community. In fact, I'm trying to hold back tears now. But I also found myself today, this morning, I think it's been news overload. I've kind of shifted into this. I'm getting really angry, I think, in terms of, that we had a conversation, I think, earlier this year when when we were doing a little debriefing with the admin team because of a shooting that had happened at a school in Michigan, and there was just shortly a few days before what happened in Texas, something that happened in Buffalo at a supermarket, and I do think that that we're at this place where there needs to be some common sense that we come together as a society on, and it's one of those that I understand both sides very much. I grew up in the country. It's like I'm an outdoors guy. My family hunts and fishes, and I just think that there's been so many events that have happened in the time that I have been an educator that have involved young adults, teens, and I just wish that we went and considered that we have a 21-year-old drinking age because we're concerned about the fatalities that have happened when young minds get behind a car and the senseless loss that happens. And it's been said at 21. Yet, while you can't drink at 21, you can go out and buy assault rifles and handguns. I don't know. I'm just wishing that there's this madness that I wish we could come together and find some way to not have this happen as much anymore. On a different note, I will be putting out my Friday blast this week, and we'll talk about just sort of acknowledge again the tragedy that happened in Texas, and that there are counseling resources that we have and that we can guide parents to on how to talk to children about loss and violence. And we've also been dealing with one other issue, and that related to or not related to any of this, but in terms of terrible timing, we had something that I look at it as, we work with our students on see something, say something. And we had a situation, it just happened to be on the exact same day that Texas happened, where a student goes out on a bathroom break and sees something and comes back to say there's something, something of concern that's been scrawled in a girl's bathroom, stall, and I'll give the middle school a lot of credit that because the student saw something, was uncomfortable, and came forward, that they were able to quickly determine sort of the who, what, when, why, and address it with the school resource officer, with the parent, the parent involved. But that, on top of Buffalo, on top of on top of Texas, on top of a rumor mill for this, it's a lot.
Thank you, Dr. Cochran. Very insightful and informative, and definitely something that is a rude awakening every time it happens, even though it happens much too frequently now in our society. So thank you. Ms. Stout? You're muted, Ms. Stout.
Yes, even though this wasn't foreseen, and we probably could technically discuss it now, I'm requesting that we put on the agenda for next time to discuss possibilities of implications for Monomoy regarding active shooters.
Yep, thank you. I've actually already written notes for my meeting for minutes for next time, so on it.
Great minds.
Thank you.
And Jackie, just...
Oh, one more thing, Dr. Carpenter?
Yeah, and just so the committee knows and the community knows, when something like this does occur, Texas and even the see something, say something situation, we have a crisis team that we go and debrief and try to look at what goes on, what went on, and how we can do better. And it's one of those. I'm still waiting. I think we on the crisis part of the crisis team are still waiting to get the facts of what did happen in Texas, and you don't want to play armchair quarterback without but to get the debriefing, and then to sit there and say, okay, as two towns, as public safety in two towns, and as the schools, how can we work together to make sure that we're learning all along? And we did a similar debrief when the Michigan incident happened, and clearly there seems to be lessons to be learned from this one.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Carpenter. All right, and we have the declaration of surplus. Ms. Henderson?
I would like to make a motion to approve the surplus as presented in our packet.
Thank you. Second. All right, and roll call. Ms. Stout?
Aye.
Ms. Games?
Aye.
Ms. Tolley?
Aye.
Ms. Scott? Aye. Ms. Rogers?
Aye.
Mr. Terry?
Aye.
I am an aye. And Ms. Henderson?
Aye.
Great, thank you. We've had the presentation of the warrants this evening, and a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
And a roll call. Ms. Stout? Nope, a roll call. Ms. Stout? Aye. Ms. Games?
Aye.
Ms. Tolley?
Aye.
Ms. Scott?
Aye.
Ms. Rogers?
Aye.
Mr. Terry Russell?
Aye.
I am an aye. And Ms. Henderson?
Aye.
And meeting is adjourned at 8:26 p.m. Have a wonderful long weekend, everyone.